Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert. I'm the author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life. So if you want a step-by-step guide to creating an incredible life of your own, please pick up one of my books. And you're listening to the Incredible Life Creator podcast. And my guest today is Dr. Jovan Walker-Jackson. Now, Dr. Jovan Walker-Jackson, known as the Financial Coach of Hope, is a faith-filled author, speaker, and licensed financial insurance advisor who serves as the president of Good News Financial Investment Advisors, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Maryland. Jovan developed financial programs and insurance strategies to assist clients in the areas of debt elimination, tax reduction, retirement planning, asset preservation, and long-term care alternatives. Her drive and passion to teach financial literacy has led her to become a sought-after wealth manager and advisor in Baltimore DC metropolitan area for 15 years. And she has a special program and book called You Be the Bank, Finance Yourself to Wealth, and the workbook companion in 2016. And she now has a planner, I Am the Bank, that she authored in September 2020. So welcome to the podcast, Jovan.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kimberley. Thank you so much for having me to share with you today.
Yes, and I think financial literacy is such a hot topic these days because, if I have number one complaint of the school system right now is that our kids are not financially literate. They don't teach them how to, take care of themselves even, financially, or how to buy a house or how to read a business plan, nothing. So we definitely are going to talk about that. But before we do, tell us about you, like how you started out, how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I am first and foremost, I always like to say I am a woman of faith. Right. I'm a spiritual being living this human experience. Right. But out of that experience, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I have two amazing daughters as well, one 12-year-old, one 3-year-old. And my husband, his name is Lawrence. And so prior to getting to this wonderful place, right, that I am now, I was just a average old girl from Baltimore, right? Probably a step above the projects, I guess you can say, is where I grew up at. And I decided, went through the Baltimore public school systems and decided right out of high school to go into the Army. I went into the Army. And most people say, why'd you go into the Army? Because I graduated from a college preparatory school. And the reason why I went in the Army, people laugh about it, is because I needed a car. I was tired of having to, back in those days, it used to be called hacks. Hacks is what it was called in Baltimore, where it was like an informal cab service, right? In Baltimore, I was tired of just struggling to get to where I wanted to go in life. And I was like, what's the quickest way I can make some money? And I think the Army recruiters came around, and then they started throwing out terms about I can work for the FBI. And so I went in the Army and the Military Intelligence Corps. And so they told me that, hey, I could maybe work for the FBI when I got out. So that sounded good. So I was like, I'm in, can I buy a car? And so of course that was the first thing I did. So that's what I did, ended up in the Army. And after that, I didn't like it. I did not like it. I always say the military is like a legal jail. But anyway, I'm such a free bird. I got out of there. I was actually in during 9/11. So the time that I was supposed to get out, I could not get out because they put what's called a stop loss. So we couldn't get out during those times. So I just waited. I said, God will make a way. And sure enough, 8 months later, they lifted it. I was able to get out. And so came in corporate America. I had a top secret security clearance during that time. So I did come out in my, what was I wasn't even 20, well, 2021, and, no college education, making almost 50,000 at 21, and because of that top secret clearance. So one thing I can say about the Army, it set me in a good place to launch off. And so I did that for a few years, and I decided this is corporate America is not for me. So I did that for about 4 years. I was able to climb that salary chain. People thought I was absolutely crazy because I was just under 6 figures and I was about 24 years old at that time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to step out on faith and try my hand at entrepreneurship. And the first place I landed was real estate. So I started out as a real estate investor. And then when I left the job, I said, well, I better get as many income streams as I can. So I got my real estate license too. Mm-hmm. And so I was also had affiliated with like a financial company, a marketing company, where that was kind of like my first introduction into entrepreneurship. I did a home-based business. I was investing in real estate, selling homes. That was like my entry into the world of entrepreneurship. And so things were going really well, really fast. And you know, like I said, just making a lot of right decisions because I've always had that financial mind. And so things were just falling in place. God just had me really falling into purpose and destiny real early. And, but then, you know, there's always a but. something always happens, right? What do you think happened? This is early 2000. Early 2000s now, around about 2004, 2006, I think it was. I left my job. Well, a couple years later, what was the big deal? What happened? The crash.
That's right.
You remember? Yeah, that 2007, 2008 market crash. And it was like the rug just pulled right from under me. Yep. And so all the things, I probably end up losing about 80% of my liquid assets in that crash. You know, that's where the spiral began. Financial devastation came. So now, you know, I'm giving houses back, repossessions, bankruptcies, you know, money problems equal family problems. So, you know, the household got funny as well. The marriage got funny, and that ended in divorce. All right. So it just became real fast. You know, during that time, a lot of the things that I had been teaching and preaching, you know, in my financial solutions business, I now had to start applying to my own real life situation. And so I believe, you know, I remember there was a time, fast forward after all of that, you know, went through all of that. I remember a time where I was driving literally into the tunnel, and I was talking to a client at this point. I was talking to a client, and she was going through, she was dealing with foreclosures or something of that nature. And I was just coaching her, you know, on what she can expect to happen and, you know, different things like that. And I vividly heard from God in that moment and said, this is what I was preparing you for. You know, you went through all of that now, so that not only can you sympathize with your clients, but you can now empathize because you had to live what you're teaching them. And I told her, because I remember saying to her, it was during this comment, I said, you know, Miss Barbara, her name was Barbara. I said, I'm not telling you this based upon theory. I'm telling you this because this is what I've done. This is what I had to do to go through that process to avoid, you know. And so that's when I vividly heard God say to me, this is what I was preparing you for. This moment right here, where now you're teaching, you're coaching. It's not theoretical, right? It's real life, you know. So yes, I've gotten, of course, that whole process and tenor with real estate that led me into financial services today. I fell in love with the process of just helping people get prepared, right, for home ownership. They was doing that process, was helping them preparing. That's where I fell in love with the budgeting, the analysis, and all the things, and helping people with financial management. That's kind of how I got here today. So, yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Wow, it took you a little time to figure out what you didn't like to find what you did like.
Exactly. And what I did not like, it positioned me in a great place to get to what I did like, because it's nowhere in the world without going through the Army, getting that top secret clearance, that I would have been in my early 20s. I've never rented a home. I've came out of the Army, got married, and we bought a house. I've never in my life rented a home, but it was because of the the experience that the military provided me, that having that good job and that income, it allowed me to be able to buy real estate investment. So what I didn't like got me to what I do like.
Exactly. And as you're making those different pivots in life,
Exactly.
how did your faith fit in there? How did that change the way you reacted or did things?
It was everything, because everything was a faith walk. Just to go into the army to begin with was faith, right? My family, they weren't really happy about it, but they supported they supported it. And while I was in there, I was struggling to qualify for the rifle, right? So I was praying my way through that. So every part of the journey has been a faith walk. I tell you, entrepreneurship in itself is faith. I like to let people know, like, it's not for everybody. You definitely have to have a level of faith, because it's a journey that you cannot see, and you have to trust the process to know that the resources will be made available, right? Mm-hmm. So it's been a faith walk, and it continues to be a faith walk even to this day, with having 16 years under my belt being full-time. It's still a faith walk, because every day is different. Like all of us have just experienced, like I talked about, my first defining pivot was that 2008, right? That was like the first big thing for me. And then here you go, you got a pandemic come. So I just had always decided that after that first time, I wanted to be in a position that I made decisions that were rooted and grounded, right? Where no matter which way the wind blew, because it blows on us all, okay? Mm-hmm. That I wouldn't have that rug just kind of like pull from under me, and that, hey, if the wind might blow and it get a little rocky, but I should be able to keep staying there.
To be standing upright at least.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Wow.
And that's what I teach.
There is no time like now.
Yeah.
We got through 2008. But
yeah.
Then we got into this pandemic, and now we're getting, at least I'm getting, mixed messages. I hear the media saying, we're going into depression, or
recession.
all the recession. And I hear people saying they're printing too much money and everything's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. And now I live in Georgia, and the real estate is like wild. People are buying up real estate like it's unbelievable, like at high prices. And I'm thinking, okay, there's mixed messages here.
Yep.
Should I buy? Should I sell? If I sell, can I buy a new house? There's so many questions people are asking. Should I save my money? Should I invest my money? Is the stock market still going to be there? So how do we prepare ourselves? What are some basic things that no matter what ends up happening, how can we prepare ourselves for what's possibly coming?
It's tough because, as you said, there's a lot of mixed messages, a lot of the rules and of thumbs, we just haven't seen, like right now we're at this housing bubble, right? Which feels a lot like 2008. Let me say that. But then at the same time, the interest rates are high. So that's the anomaly. Like back then, interest rates weren't up, like they were actually where they are now, but now they came from low and now they just rose up. So now you got housing costs and interest rates, like a double whammy. So these are just some times that nothing is new under the sun. But if you haven't experienced these times, you really don't know, right, how to handle them. So it is a lot of uncertainty right now, and all of that feeling that you feel with a lot of people feels that way, and you have every right to feel that way. So one of the things that, we like to help our clients prepare is, like, I'm really big on debt elimination. I really feel like if you can, and this is the time, if you can get as liquid as possible or create as much cash flow as possible, because as we all have noticed, inflation has always been around. We've been teaching inflation for the past 10 years, but now we see it. It has become real to many of us. We've been talking about this for so long, and I think people are like, oh yeah, want. Now, we seeing and feeling. I told my husband the other day, I said, babe, I'm feeling this gas price right now. Like before, I was like, not a big deal. I'm not doing a whole lot of traveling. Okay, I got to pay a few extra dollars, but I was like, I just put gas in this car 2 days ago, and now I'm on E again. And so I'm feeling it. And I'm a person that, thank God, I'm not in a desperate situation, but imagine the people who are, have limited income, they are really feeling it. It makes a big impact. So I said all that to say, increase your cash flow, right? Get out of the debt so that if and when all of these things are going to happen, or when they happen, you are free, because you're going to need cash flow to be able, because things are going to be more money. And so you want to be in a position where you don't have to make choice of, do I buy my medicine or do I buy food? Right? Or do I pay this credit card? And because a lot of times people don't want to mess up their good history. And so focusing on getting out of debt is something that we preach and teach about. And then protection, right? Protection of your income. That's another thing. A lot of times we have protection for our house. We have protection for our car. We got protection for our cell phone bills, right? Our cell phones, all of this protection, but we don't protect our income. And not only, we're dealing with this whole economic climate, but there are other things that's attached to those risks too, and health risks, right? We're seeing a lot more health issues. I know you, being a health professional as well, you are seeing it, you're feeling it in your industry. And one of the things we're seeing now is, young people, professionals who are coming down with these chronic and terminal illnesses and things, and they cannot continue to work. And so we're big as well on making sure that you protect your income from disability, from long-term, health effects, and even death. Protecting that income is also things that I would say put in place, because right now we just don't know, what to expect. And it's so many things coming from so many different directions. Those are the areas that, I would say. And then also consider buffer assets. How can I buffer, this potential hit that's coming, especially those who have assets, right, invested in the market, and they're preparing for retirement. You got retirement assets and investable assets. Like, start looking into buffer assets, so that because we're already seeing the market is already taking a hit. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is certainly not the time for you to be liquidating those assets right now, because they've just taken a hit. And then if you start liquidating now, it's just like a double whammy, right, on your assets. So developing buffer assets that will, when these things happen, this volatility happen, you can utilize these assets to continue to fund your lifestyle that doesn't interrupt your opportunity to compound, right, for your money to grow. So those are like some of the things that I would say off the top of my head that I think we should really be focused on, because it's just so much happening, and you want to really ground yourself, right? The buffer assets will help ground the things that you put in place. The protection will protect what you do have, so kind of look to capital preservation and liquidity. Those would be the areas that I would say we should kind of be looking to help to prepare ourselves for for what's to come. Mm-hmm. Something's coming. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but something is out there,
That is true. And I'm not sure if this is your area or not, but we're hearing about Ethereum and Bitcoin and this other stuff. And it's like, Okay, with all this movement happening everywhere, should I put a little bit over there? Should I be investing a little bit over in that space too, just in case the dollar decides to go all the way to the bottom? What do we do with that?
That's a tough one because technically they don't want us to, we haven't been released from the regulators to kind of advise on crypto. But I will say, and let me just put that disclaimer out there, anything that we talk about is general in nature. Please don't accept anything that I say as financial advice, because it would be impossible for me to give advice without knowing your individual situation. But I will say it's something that people should take the time to learn about. You know, the rule of thumb is, first and foremost, never invest in anything that you're not familiar with. You don't understand all of the risks associated. You just don't even have a conceptual understanding. And I think a lot of time we have the FOMO, you know, the fear of missing out, and we just kind of jump in and want to be a part because we're, you know, people have created all of this hype, and you know, you're like, well, let me get in here, and you really don't know. And so this time really puts you in mind of the .com era. If you remember, and those, you know, those late 19, when the internet was coming out, you know, you had people saying like, oh, that's not real, you know, World Wide Web, you know, it was just like a big hoax, right? And then there were all of these companies back then who were in the infancy or development stage, and it was thousands of them. Now, did all of them turn into something? No, but did some of them emerge? Yeah. So the idea is getting that understanding and that education and enough to know, okay, what this whole digital era is about, right? And learning about it, understanding, and then at that point you're able to make some educated decisions based off of that, but not based off of hype, because unfortunately a lot of people take the media, they take the Reddits, they take the Facebooks, and they hear all this hype and they jump, but they really don't know what they're jumping in. Could some be winners? Could some be losers? Yes. But at least, you know, that's what I would say. Take the time to get educated on it.
That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah.
So I would like to know how to be my own bank.
I'm wearing my shirt, says I am the bank. Yeah, being your own bank is amazing. It's really I'll give you a real simplistic idea. And of course, you know, for your listeners, Kimberly, I will avail my an ebook copy of my book, You Be the Bank, where everybody can get a copy of it to kind of really get a better understanding, because you need visuals. Sometimes visuals help a lot with learning. But being your own bank is merely a financial position where you have liquidity, access, and control of your money. That's what being your own bank is. When we think about banking in general, banking is a business, right? There's only two key elements to banking. We're making deposits, we're making withdrawals. So those are the concepts when it comes to banking. And so when we think about banks, if you took $10,000 today, went into a bank and deposited that money there, how much interest do you think you would get on that 10,000?
I don't know, less than 1%. I know
Yep,
that.
less than 1%. You're right. I'll just be modest and say they'll give you 1%, right? Well, turn right around the next day, go back into that bank, and now request a loan for $10,000. What do you think that loan is going to cost you?
Oh, it probably depends, but 10,
Yep.
15.
That's right. It depends. You're right. It depends on what you need it for, right? But it's definitely way more than what they gave you, right? And so what the bank does is they take every dollar we put in the bank, they lend it out at least 7 times, right? And they make money on that. So what if we can do the same thing, right? Take our money, use it like the bank, and give our $1, at least 2 jobs. They give it at least 7, but if we can give it at least 2 jobs, we would be in a different situation. So now what happens is we turn the tables. Now we allow the power of compound interest to work in our favor versus the bank, because here to now, they're the one recouping all of the interest, not us. So that's what it's about, putting yourself in this position where you can create this increasing accumulation pool of money that you have access to, control of, right? And uninterrupted compounding. That's the key, uninterrupted compounding. And so these are strategies that I wish I could take credit for, but I can't. These have been around for years. People have been utilizing different types of vehicles to be the bank for years, but it's all centered. The key component to this strategy is the ability to have collateralization. You have to be able to collateralize your money. And I think my good friend, my first mentor, Robert Kiyosaki, he coined that whole OPM, other people's money. And he teaches you how to do that. And it's through collateralization. So that same process, you put yourself in that position to do exactly what the banks do. Give every dollar at least 2 jobs. So that's it in a nutshell, high level, without getting too technical. I like to keep things real simple. But like I said, my book kind of goes into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts for the more technical, engineering type of people.
Yeah, and I'll put that in the show notes too, so they can, find your book and everything. So
yeah, definitely. And they can, like I said, for the listeners, they can get a free copy, an ebook copy. Now, of course, if they want a hard copy, they can purchase that, but they can just text the word freedom to 443-419-7552. And then they can just download the ebook copy. But if they want the actual hard copy, you'll put the link in there and they can go grab that at ubthebankbooks.com.
okay, well, that would be great. Yeah. And just thinking about the family in general, is there any things that we should be doing as far as getting our kids prepared financially?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, first and foremost, just having discussions. That's where it starts, at the dinner table, right? Just having those discussions about money, so that, because I try to teach my kids, like, the privileges that you have, to go to these camps, to go here, to do this and do that. It's not free. Like, it comes from hard work and, sacrifice. And so just really letting your child first and foremost know that everything that you have, the lifestyle that you live today, it comes from a choice, right? It comes from a choice of, how do I make the best use of the resources that you have? So having the conversations in the household is first and foremost, even down to the point where you can show your kids the budget. Like, this is the budget. Everything should tie back to the budget. We're going on vacation. What's the budget? We're going to the grocery store. What's the budget? We're going to the store to buy you a toy. What's the budget? So if you can start getting your children to understanding budget and cash flow now, they'll just naturally grow up into the right principles of knowing that I live, move, and operate by a budget. Right? So I think that's first and foremost. Then you have the conversations and really involving them into that planning. One of the things I did also, I created a financial planner, and that's called I Am the Bank. You can't see it from my background there, but it's called I Am the Bank Financial Planner. And it is a resource where you're able to manage, track, and organize all of your finances in one place. Your debts plan, your savings, your investments, and your budget. And so creating and completing a budget. Some people are electronic people, some people are hand people. So this planner, this is a hard planner. This is perfect for people who like to write down. And actually, I encourage you to write down, because sometimes what we can't see, we can't track, right? And so it's hard to, I know for me, it's hard for me to track them every $4 charge and swipe, right? And that's how people end up overdrawing their account, because they can't add, they're not a human computer to keep track of all of those expenses. But so if you have a planner where you can kind of write things down, give yourself a set budget, utilize, I teach a concept called the envelope theory. I love that because what happened, I'll tell you how I learned about that. Back in my military days, I overdraft my account so bad. And it was because of those $3 swipes and $6 at 7-Eleven. And I just could not believe that they would charge me $29 and I only charged $3. Like that. That just blew my mind. And, ever since then, I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to deal with this, because I know myself, I'm just not that person who's going to keep track. So that's when I kind of started, I got indoctrinated to the envelope theory, where I just have, hey, each category, my eating out, my entertainment, gas, lunches, whatever, every 2 weeks this is when I had a paycheck. During that time, I would get paid bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks, I would sit down and write out that budget and split everything down the middle. And I said, okay, I got $200 for this, $200, and I took it out for each category and put it into an envelope. Right. And that's how I spent. So I didn't have to worry about. So once the money was gone out of the envelope, it was gone. It was done. It was done. And when I saw it getting low, you know what I did? I was like, oh Lord, wait a minute. I got 5 more days. I said, boy, I'm gonna wait on this. I'm not gonna, go ahead and buy these chips today, because I gotta let this little bit of money. It was a way that I learned how to budget, right, without going through the school of the hard knocks. Now, getting back to the kids, involving them in that same process. So if they see you tracking the money and say, here's your envelope, give the children, here's your envelope, this is your allowance. We used to do this, right? We used to hear about it on all the TV. Give them that allowance, whether it's on the I don't want to endorse any prepaid cards, but sometimes now they have these different cards that you can give your kids the card, whether it's through electronic version of something like that or it's through the envelope. Give that to them, and you will be surprised how I had one of my who was this, my daycare, somebody I was just having a conversation with, I can't remember who it was, but they were sharing with me how their kid will save and save, and then they decided to purchase some tennis shoes, but the tennis shoes took a lot of their money. And after that experience, the kid was like, I don't like that, because now all my money is gone. And so now he has a different way of viewing, right, spending now, because he experienced real life, right? That's real life. He experienced what it felt like hitting this. I guess he started to say, well, did I really need those tennis shoes? Like, now I don't have anything. I have to start over. And that's one of the things that the previous call I was just on, I talked about, what being a saver look like. Is like a person who saves, but then they drain the tank, get back to the zero line, and have to start all over again until it's time to buy something else again. And so involving your child in that process, it gives them a good sense of understanding of what cash flow is, because that's all it is managing what comes in and what goes out, and how long it's going to last you, right? Are you going to have more money at the end of the month, or are you going to have more month at the end of that money? Right? So that's what I would say to do in preparation for the kids. Another thing that people do as well is to kind of help jumpstart their kids as far as credit is concerned, is people will also add their child as an authorized user on their credit cards. And so what that does now, of course, assuming you're a responsible parent, right, and you're managing your credit wisely, but when you do that as well, that's another way to really prepare your children and get them set up so when they're 18, they can already have a 700 credit score because they have had history of credit. So those are just a couple of things that I would just throw off the top of my head that doesn't require a lot of vetting or research or anything that you can actually start doing today and really start to see some good results and feedback from your children.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
And then what about people in business? How do people in business prepare? Are there certain things that you shouldn't be doing, the certain things you should be doing as far as your business?
Yeah, you'd believe it or not, it's very parallel to working professionals. And I'm going to circle right back with people in business as well as benefits. Like people should really, again, be protecting because people who are in business, they don't necessarily have the benefit package that working professionals get should they get sick or they get disabled or they have a pandemic and they got to shut down their store, right? Mm-hmm. So again, putting things in place to protect the health risks, because if a business owner gets sick and they don't have the proper income protection in place, you're talking about a tsunami, because it's not just the business that's affected, now your family is affected too. So I would definitely say that for business. Another thing for business people, same thing, cash flow, right? Try to, create as much leverage as possible, position yourself so that you can access funds. But as we remember, during these type of financial climates, if you remember back, and again, circling back to that 2008, when things hit the fan, the access was cut away. Those credit lines and access to loans, remember that, were cut away. So, really position yourself now before things hit to, get liquid and leverage so that you can use the bank's money now and keep your money free, because you never know where you may need to use your money, as a collateral first. But if you can't collateralize it because they're not releasing any credit, then you need your money to be available. So liquidity is very important for business owners as well. And really, I would also probably say planning. A lot of business owners, they just do not plan for that 60 and 70-year-old. They don't have an exit strategy. Think about it, how many people that who are in business and they're in their 60s and 70s and they're still working, not because they just love what they're doing. They just didn't have a plan in place. And so they don't have enough resources or cash flow to sustain their lifestyle that they built up. And so I like to tell business owners, because I'm most passionate about working with small business owners, because I can relate first and foremost, but start with the end in mind. You don't necessarily have to implement the strategy, but at least know what that end looks like. And then you can kind of work towards building and filling in those gaps along the way, versus what we tend to do as business owners. We don't really start getting focused on things like, okay, I'm in my 40s and 50s. And then it's like, oh my, retirement, I can kind of see retirement ahead. What am I going to do? But no, if you can kind of start making some smaller contributions and putting some plans in place, where that 30 and that 40-year-old business owner is going to have to take care of that 60, 70, 80-year-old business owner. But it starts with looking at the beginning, at the end, at the beginning.
Wow. Well, thank you for all that great advice. And now I have a personal question. Okay. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life?
That's a good question. For me, I would say it is helping people to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Before I got some of the recent licenses that I have, and I still do, I refer to myself as the financial coach of hope. And the reason why was because many people I would meet with, make sure many people that I would meet with, they came in and most of my clients are not people who are in a negative cash flow type of thing. They have really good incomes. Most of my people, they make 75K and above. Most are six-figure earners. They may even have some assets saved, but what they don't have is they're not confident. They don't have a lot of hope and faith in their financial future. And it's a lot of reasons that is. Maybe they're overwhelmed with debt and, maybe they just don't know where to start because as you said earlier, nobody taught them, and these are highly educated people, but again, these aren't things that we're taught in high school and in college. And so they have this everyday mentality of like, I just kind of hope it works out, but I'm really not confident. I'm really not sure. And so one of the things that I take a lot of pleasure in is the people, after they meet with me, they leave, and this is kind of how I came up with it when, my marketing person was just kind of trying to help me to build my brand, several years ago. And I said, they would say to me, Jovan, now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. When I came, I didn't know which way to go. It just felt so bleak. I just felt like it was so much going out than coming in, or just, I didn't know who I could trust. All of these different things, right, that went into it. But that's where I think I get the most pleasure with anybody, just really helping people, giving people hope and bringing light into their dark situation. And me doing that allows me to secondly be available and live a free life to my family. So one of the things, tomorrow morning I take she's 86 now, my 86-year-old grandmother to the doctors. Well, I'm able to do that because of the things that I get to do in the marketplace, right? Because of entrepreneurship, and it gives me that freedom to do that. And so now to be able to tell her, sometimes she'll, thank you, Jovan. I'm like, you don't have to thank me. Like, this is what you did for me. Now I'm just returning what you did. I'm just trying. And what I'm doing is no comparison to what she did for me, because she partially raised me. But that's where I get the most fulfillment, to be able to say all of the sacrifice, that all of those financial devastation I experienced in the early 2000s, and the divorces, and all of that, it paid off, because at least now I get to do this, right? Not have to feel like I can't take off, and really be there for my family. When people pass away, I can go to funerals and things like that, and not have to worry about am I going to get in trouble or lose my job and things like that. So that's kind of what I would say gives me the most fulfillment, helping people to have some hope at the end of the day, and just really having freedom to just kind of enjoy life. Because one of the things, and maybe you'll probably ask me this, so I'm gonna save this last part as my advice for people. I was getting ready to go into the thing, my advice that I would tell people.
That is my next question. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for sharing everything. And my last question is, what is your best advice on creating an incredible life of your own?
Yeah, after going through all of that, that experience in my early part of my career, I started to really be intentional about harmonic wealth. Like, right, yes, I talk a lot about financial, because that's just my lane of genius. That's my gift that God gave me. But I now try to make sure that it's not just about finances, that all the 5 pillars of my life work together, are in harmony. Because certainly you don't want to reach this pinnacle financially, or in business, or in work, career, whatever, but then your family life sucks. right? Your children are all over the place. They're just everywhere. Your family don't have great relationships, right? You have no social life. So, and I say that because that's what happened to me. That's, in that early time, I was just 24/7, go, chasing that dollar, right? Trying to build this business, and everything else was, the scale was completely, I don't really believe in balance, because if my kid is sick, I'm not worrying about business at that time, right? If you're in college and you're studying, you're cramming for this paper, you're not so really worried about your relationships and your friendships. It's about what's most important at the time. But what I do believe, that if you can have every area of your life kind of like in harmony with each other, so yes, your finances are great, but your family, your marriage is good too. Your health is good, because that's another area we neglect. And as your background, this, I'm sure, we will sacrifice. There are people who are pushing these brands that say no sleep when I'm dead, and all of that foolishness. That is exactly what it is. Foolishness. Do not buy.
Great.
You wouldn't believe, like, that's what I was trained on early in my, my entrepreneur journey. And so don't be that person who you end up with, millions of dollars, but your health is declined, your marriage is horrible, your kids hate you, you don't have any friends, so just really live a life of harmony and build harmonic wealth, not just financial wealth, but harmonic wealth. That would be my best advice. And then my last thing that I would say, I just love this quote from Alvin Toffler. He says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
That is great.
Isn't that powerful?
It is. Thank you so much, Jovan, for being on today. I appreciate you so much.
I can't believe it's been an hour already, man.
No, it goes fast.
This was just like a nice old conversation. And that's what I was expecting. I just thank you to Dr. Kimberley, just for your willingness to share and to talk about things that a lot of times people don't talk about. They only show the sunshine. They don't talk about the rain that got them to the sunshine. And so asking those questions that are substance, because at the end of the day, all the other stuff we show on the internet and we talk about is a lot of surface. And so I appreciate your willingness to go beyond the surface of who we are, and be able to share and collaborate with each other and bring our gifts and talents together. So I just thank you for all the work that you're doing with this podcast and what you're doing in your practice as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are welcome. And we'll talk to you again soon, Jovan.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.